Mom, I still want to talk to you. Vidya began, stomping awkwardly in place. I hear you, son. Sat down Antonina Ivanovna at the table, expecting that nothing good would come out of the words of her only and beloved son. Mom, listen, we have a family. Me, Natasha, and Alyonka and Alenka. And then you. Come on, let's exchange your 3-room apartment. Why do you need such mansions? How come, Vidya? Antonina got indignant. You grew up here, in this apartment. Me and your father used to decorate this apartment. Every nail here reminds me of him. And if I'm gone, you'll get everything. Why tear it to pieces? We used to live in peace, in friendship. Actually, Vidya Shelikov was not a mean, greedy, or bad person. On the contrary, he always had a good-natured and easygoing character. He always helped his parents, did not try to do any kind of work. He could run to the store or wash the floors. He was always on duty at school and could not refuse anyone. All the boys in the yard were playing soccer, and he was tidying up the classroom. Everything would probably have been fine in his life if Vidya had not fallen in love with Natasha Shiryeva. They were so different that everyone around them even started whispering. It was just as if Natasha had bewitched Vidya. She would do it. Even the neighbors hinted to Vidya's mother cautiously, but she just shrugged it off. Come on, ladies. Rockets have already flown into space, and you are making obscurantism here. And it is true. The neighbors found someone to tell about spells. Antonina Vasilievna taught at school history. Would she believe it? So the boy fell in love with Natasha Shiryeva. So what? Of course, the girl cannot be called the first beauty. Her face is round, like the moon. Her eyebrows are whitish. Her eyes look at everyone defiantly, as if with a challenge. But it was enough that she could not put a price on herself. And she was able to convince Vidya that no one in the world was better than her and more beautiful than her. Ever since she was a child, Natasha demanded a lot of attention, and if she was friends with one of the guys, he had to be only near her. But Vidya listened to his wife in everything, looked straight into her mouth, and was ready to blow dust off Natasha. As the years passed, the lady's royal attitude did not change. Vidya turned into a real whoremonger. He would never do anything without his wife's consent, let alone against her. Everything would be fine. With such a compliant nature as Vidya in the house is always quiet, calm, no scandals. But the man began to look at the world through the eyes of his spouse. And in the eyes of Natashkina Victor's mother, Antonina Ivanovna became a real enemy because of the very 1/3 house, which her mother-in-law refused to change. I don't understand her. If you want to kill me. Natalia raised her eyes to the ceiling. Why would an elderly, lonely woman need such a mansion when we need it so much more? If I were her, I'd move to the country house. She spends most of her time there anyway. And Antonina Ivanovna had to hear the whole conversation. To be honest, Natasha did not really hide it. She wanted her mother-in-law to hear her monologue. The poor woman felt offended because from the very beginning, right after the wedding, she thought of Natashka as her daughter. She never poked her nose into anything when the young couple moved in to live with her. Then the twins were born. We can say that Antonina Ivanovna nursed Alyonka and Alenka, didn't sleep a wink, took care of them while they were small, pitied her daughter-in-law and her son. And now she heard such things. That's why my mother-in-law didn't keep quiet. So maybe I'd better go straight to the coffin to free up the dacha as well. That would probably be more rational, wouldn't it, Natasha? Natasha just shrugged her shoulders and turned to her husband. Why don't you say something to your mother? Vidya, getting the fast command from his wife, lowered his eyes to the floor and said, Come on, Mom, you're wrong. Natasha means well. Vidya. Antonina Ivanovna shook her head. Good boy. Only it turns out that I brought you up not for yourself, but for her. Natashka sniggered and took her husband by the hand. Let's go, Vidya. We have to pack things. We won't stay here another day. And Vidya, a good, kind, easygoing boy, went defiantly in front of his mother to pack. Antonina Ivanovna sat quietly on the sofa, watched all this theater and cried. Vidya, Natalia, and the girls rented a house and moved in. Since then, they did not show their noses to Antonina Ivanovna, and the children were strictly forbidden to visit their grandmother. Antonina only sometimes saw them from afar when they went to the house across the street to visit Natash's mother. Vidya even stopped calling his mother. He would only answer if she herself called, but he himself, no way, my wife won't let me. How long is she going to keep calling you? Natalia asked one day, indignant that her Witek continued to communicate with her mother in spite of everything. How can you communicate with a man who has deprived his own grandchildren of a roof over their heads? Natasha, of course, was talking nonsense, but Vidya did not even look away. It was as if Antonina Vasilievna heard him and stopped calling. At all. She didn't call on her son's birthday, on New Year's Eve either, and on February 23rd. But when Mom didn't call on the girl's birthday, Vidya got worried. Mom hasn't called in a year and a half, he worried. Secretly from his wife, he tried to call Mom, but the phone was always out of range. Finally, secretly from his wife, he got ready and went to his mother. On the familiar door was a piece of paper with a stamp. Vitka's heart sunk to his heels. Anticipating trouble, he went to see his neighbor, an old woman, just like his mother. She stood in front of him, small, old, looking like a scrappy sparrow. It's been more than 2 months since our Tanya left. She's exhausted, poor thing. She was lying there for 3 days before I found her. The whole house was collecting for her funeral. We couldn't reach you. Vidya stood there, unable to say anything, tears streaming down his cheeks. Before his eyes, the moments of his life with his mother flew by, like frames from a movie, and now she was gone. The neighbor had slammed the door in his face long ago, but he just stood there. Subscribe to our channel not to miss new interesting life stories. Give us your likes, write your opinion in the comments.